Hey all, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Pure and I'm an animator and developer. Today I'm going to share an expression I used when I created this sequence animation. The animation was used in a tutorial I made on how I use the Elgato Stream Deck in my animation workflow. If you'd like to check it out, I'll leave a link in the top right hand corner there. For this tutorial, we're going to recreate part of this music player, going to assume that you know your way around After Effects and know how to set up a composition. If not, and you need a blank template to start from, I'll leave a link of the project file down in the description below so you can follow along. Let's get to it. Starting off, I'm going to create a null layer and name it controller. I'm going to add a slider controller and name it scale. I will animate only using this null controller layer, and no other layers will have keyframes, but they will have expressions connecting them to this layer. Next, I'll create 3 rectangle layers and name them yellow rec, magenta rec, and cyan rec. In order for the controller layer to work, I have to parent the scale property of the rectangles to the scale controller I made earlier. So let's open up the controller layer to reveal the scale slide control in the object effects folder. We will also open up the yellow rectangle layer to show the scale property of the rectangle. Inside of the scale property of the rectangle, I will open up the expression editor and type the following. Scale x is equal to, and I'm going to use the pick whip to link these two properties. And then I'm going to end it with a semicolon. And then for the y value of this object, I want it to stay the same. So I'll just write scale y is equal to, and then I'll pick whip this to the y value in scale. And then I will end that with a semicolon. Since scale requires 2 values, I will write open bracket scale x, comma scale y, close bracket. So let's break this down more in depth. First, I created a variable named scale x, and this is referencing the scale slider we made on the controller layer. Scale x is equal to whatever the value we type into the scale slider. Now if we move the slider to 24, the scale x variable is now equal to 24, and we're going to keep the y value the same. The scale property is what we consider an array value, which takes 2 values. If we don't put in 2 values, we will get an error. We can see our slider is connected properly to our yellow rec layer, we can copy the expression onto our other rectangle layers. I will right-click on the scale property of the yellow rectangle and select Copy Expression Only. I will then select the scale property on the other layers and hit Command V, which is the hotkey if you're on a Mac, or if you're a Windows user, it's Control V. Now all our layers have a working expression that connects them to our controller layer. In the case of the scale slider, I will make 2 keyframes. one at the 2-second mark, and I'll set it to 0. And then I'll move ahead in the timeline to 3 seconds and increase the size to 120. And I will easy ease those keyframes. Now, as you can see, all of the rectangles begin and end at the same time, and we don't want that. We want a bit of a delay on each subsequent rectangle. Could add keyframes to each layer and offset them manually, but we can actually do this using the valueAtTime method. Within our scale x variable, we will add the valueAtTime method to the end of this line. ValueAtTime takes an argument of time, which is represented by a t. For this purpose, we will write inside the parentheses time minus index divided by 20. You can see the scale of the yellow rectangle is just a bit behind the magenta and cyan rectangle. Next, I will right-click on the scale property and select Copy Expression Only, and paste it to my magenta and cyan layers. Now, taking a look, you can see that they're following one after another. And you can adjust this however you like. I eventually went with time minus index divided by 10 for the argument. ValueAtTime is a great tool because you can really specify what value you want at what time. Instead of moving a whole bunch of keyframes, you can just duplicate the layer and the math will calculate itself. So if I duplicate this layer that I made, you will have a nice sequence animation. You can use the valueAtTime method on any property, such as opacity and rotation, and it'll work the same way to delay the time in which those properties animate. And there you have it, a simple way to offset your timing to create a sequence animation. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up so more folks can find this resource. And for more After Effects tutorials and tips like this one, please consider subscribing to my channel. Happy animating!